All right, everyone, let's do this. How are you? Welcome to this week's episode of our podcast. It's called Breakfast Included. Thanks for joining us. On the show this week, we have Ralph Rolle. Ralph is the drummer and sometimes singer of the band Nile Rodgers and Chic. He also owns the company Soul Snacks, which sells the most amazing cookies, which you can find in Walmart and Kroger. He tells us all about that, his career, his upbringing, his first gig, his first tour, plus much more. It's a great conversation. Let's check it out. Tell everyone who you are.
My name is Ralph Rolle. I am the drummer for Nile Rodgers and Chic. I am originally from the Bronx, New York. A proud Bronx resident still. My business is there, and I love being a drummer and a businessman.
Right on, man. Well, yeah. Ralph, I appreciate you doing this. How long have you been playing drums?
Oh, God. I started playing when I was around 9 years old.
Uh-huh.
So if I do the math, 9 was 1970.
Okay.
Yeah, 1970, I believe, somewhere around there. And now it's, 2023? Yeah. So 70, 89.
52 years.
Yeah, 52, yeah.
You want to know how I know that? I was born in 1970.
Oh, okay.
Normally, my math is terrible.
Oh, really?
But I knew exactly.
I'm like, this dude is quick. Need to call him
savant.
Right. Do some accounting for me, man.
Did you come from a musical family or?
My aunt played piano.
Uh-huh.
My grandmother obviously sung in church, as most people did, but not like a real musical like family, like we would get together and jam. My brother was a drummer.
Okay.
And that's where I got it from.
Uh-huh.
The drums ended up in my house one day when I was around 9 years old, and I just did everything that he did. So he played drums, I played drums.
Yeah. It wasn't one of those things like, don't touch my drums when I'm not home?
No, he was actually cool with it.
Really?
You know, he saw my enthusiasm. I said, Howie, can I play? He said, yeah, you can play. Just don't change the drums around because you're left-handed.
Ah.
You know, so I just abided by my older brother's rules, and I would just sit down and play. That's why I play open-handed now.
So open-handed means you're hitting that hi-hat with your left hand.
Yes, I lead with my left on my hi-hat and right hand is on the snare. It's actually a pretty cool style.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I've only known a couple of drummers that played open-handed.
Yeah, well, Simon Phillips he's ambidextrous, but Billy Cobham plays open-handed. There's a couple other guys out there that play open-handed. It's a cool style.
Yeah, yeah. Does it allow you to do?
Yeah, back in the 80s, I was working in a local group called Indigo, and the first time that I had to use my left hand and play groove with my right hand was to play a clap machine. You didn't even play with a stick, I had to play with my hand. But that was the first attempt at doing multiple things. But it does free you up to have, you know, the ability to play open, because my percussion is on my drum machine is on the left-hand side. So I have congas in there, so I could play a conga groove and still continue to, you know, play the drums, which is it's a lot of fun.
All right. So your brother told you not to switch it around, so you knew right off the bat, like you were different.
I didn't.
You didn't?
I never thought. I didn't even know if anyone, maybe someone might have said it to me, but I might have just like, oh, I don't, whatever. But I never like, oh wow, I got to play this right-hander's way.
Yeah.
You know, I just adapted the style.
Yeah. I met Eric Gills a few years back, and I asked him the same thing, like, hey, and he's like, nah, I just picked it up how it was comfortable.
Right.
And he plays left-handed, but he's strong right-handed.
Right.
That's the way.
So
Doyle Bramhall II, too.
So the bottom string is on the bottom. Wow.
That low E is,
low is E. Wow, that's amazing.
So I guess it's the same thing. It was just felt right to do.
Yeah, that's all it was. I love the style that I play. It's just easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you? When did you get your first professional gig?
My first professional gig, I was 19. I was just a couple of years out of high school. I graduated a year early, and the intent was that I was going to go to engineering school. or early childcare. I wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
But when I told my mother that I wanted to play drums, she just thought I was the craziest person. So I just practiced on everybody else's kit because I didn't have one. I graduated at 17. I didn't get my drum set until I was 18, and I did my first pro gig at 19.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that like a session, or was it a?
No, it was a tour. There was a group called Chic. And they had a hit song called Push, Push in the Bush. Push, push in the bush. And we toured Mexico, man. It was a beautiful, I've seen probably more cities in Mexico than many people that live there. I was all over Mexico, man. And it was so beautiful. I mean, Ixtapa, Jalapa, Tampico, Guadalajara, Michoacan, so many others. And I remember all of those cities for many, many years because it was my first tour. So, you know, I really loved it there. I had a good Taxco, you know, and the people loved the band, and I loved the treatment.
Right on.
Very nice.
So what was it like for a kid from the Bronx, man, to like go to Mexico? Like, was there a culture shock there, of course?
Well, yeah, there was a couple of things that I had seen that made an indelible mark in my psyche. You know, one of the first things that I had seen when we pulled into Mexico City was I saw a family that was homeless, an entire family. And I grew up in the projects. So it made me understand that where I lived was not bad at all, especially when you see that type of situation. And from that point, I've always tried my best to help people.
Yeah.
Because I did realize right at that moment that, you know, whatever my mother had for us, there are people out there that when you think you're doing bad, there's somebody's doing worse.
Yeah.
So I just do a lot of stuff to help people as much as I can.
That's pretty important to know, man. Like you could be having a bad day, but even your bad day is better than someone's best day.
Yes, and I, you know, the thing is, I don't compare myself, but I know that I have a job to do, and the job is to try to be as benevolent and kind and empathetic and positive as possible to everyone.
Yeah.
You know, that's just important to me. It's always been important to me.
Yeah. And in your position as a professional musician, how do you use that to help people?
I've used this platform to, you know, do a lot of different things. Like, for example, I have another business in New York. Me and my wife, we have a cookie company that I started in my apartment when I lived in the projects. And I started that just about the same time as I started as a professional musician, maybe a couple of years after. And through that relationship of music, it's allowed me to help other people to get different situations and move their lives and their families along. So if I find an opportunity to use what I've done in the music part of my life, I exercise that right as much as I can.
Yeah. So in your other business, what I get, did you like bring people up from the community?
Oh yeah,
that you were in.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always go back to my community first to hire people.
That's awesome, man.
Always. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, everybody that worked for me, I think maybe other than one person who came from Brooklyn, was from the Bronx. You know, the Bronx was one of the most depressed areas in the Northeast. So I was always proud of where I came from. I never was I'm from the Bronx and shy away.
Yeah.
You know, I always felt like I live in the best place in the world. You know, it was literally a melting pot of incredible people.
Yeah.
In my neighborhood, and which I caused me to be colorblind. I was raised colorblind. I don't think in those terms. I just think people.
Yeah.
And I always have, and I think I always will. So
that's what a lot of people don't understand. You know, when I was young, we lived in the projects in the town I grew up in Corsicana, Texas. And the projects were called the Red Bricks.
The Red Bricks.
Because they were all the the actual apartments were all red, they were red brick. So they'd say, you live in the red bricks, and at the time people, they look down on you. You see that, but you have this community there. Your friends live there. Everybody that lives there. And then as you go, like when I go home, it's few trips that I go home, but I pass that up, and it was so big to me then, but that's where I grew up in those projects.
That's it's funny because I was just having this conversation today about right across the street from the projects was private houses, but there was people there that looked at us differently because we were from the projects. And I would always honestly get really confused about that because you live right across the street from me. I mean, I go around the corner and my friends were there, but their parents and sometimes their grandparents would look at me like, oh, he's from the projects. Like all of a sudden, like I had, a booger on my face. I don't know.
You could rob a bank with a booger.
Right. So, and that actually motivated me. It motivated me to be great because the way I would think is you're looking down on me. My mother raised a community here. She was amazing. And I'm going to prove to you that no matter where you come from, you can excel. And so their negativities helped me.
Yeah.
I didn't look at it the other way, like, oh, why are you talking about me? I'm like, okay, I'll show you.
Yeah, I think we have that same.
Really?
People call it spite.
Yes.
There's that. I thrive on spite.
I guess I do as well because don't tell me no. Don't tell me something I cannot do.
Yeah.
Because then I got to prove you wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right?
That's crazy. Very true.
But it's true. It's true. You grow up, and I want to say 75% of the people that I still talk to that grew up in those projects, they all came up to either be teachers or nurses or that type.
Right.
Giving back.
Right.
I'm the only outlier. But I feel like I help people. I set up shows.
It's funny because my sister is a teacher. She's a retired principal now, but she went into teaching. And I think it was a good life. But my first tour just was an eye opener on the possibilities. My first time on a plane, my first time out of the country, first time with a passport. I went and saw some amazing sights that a lot of people my age, from where I came from, probably never had a chance to see.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? We were just at Red Rocks. We did 2 shows there, right?
Yeah.
When I started touring, I tell this story to anybody who will listen. My first real show was at the 930 Club in DC. My first real, what I say, big tour show was at Red Rocks.
Gotcha.
I was with the support band, and I thought it's all going to be like this. I didn't think about those fairs or rodeos we'd be doing.
Right.
But Red Rocks, that was, I pulled up the picture the other day, 15 years ago, was when I started touring.
15, wow.
Yeah, I started touring late, but, I don't think I'd appreciate it the way I do if I would have started any earlier.
Right. Understood. Yeah.
When did you meet Nile?
Well, the Nile story, when I actually met Nile, it was, the first meeting wasn't that romantic at all. I had always wanted to play for Chic. I mean, from the first time I heard Chic, I was like, there's something so unique about this group, man. And they look cool and they just had a style, a swag that was just so amazing. And so many years later, after Tony passed away, word went out, this is before social media, that there was an audition coming up for Nile Rodgers, well, not Nile Rodgers, but Chic. So I was all eager to play because I knew all the songs and I knew that I could really nail it. But it was more of a marketing ploy because Omar Hakim had the gig.
Yeah.
Had it. It was his. And he did it for many years. And then I was on I was in a local band that got hired to play an event that was honoring Now. So we learned all of these Chic songs, and I'm like, wow, this is the first time he'll get a chance to hear me play. Maybe I'll meet him. But all of the attention and focus that night was on Nile as the honoree.
Yeah.
So the lead singer at the time, Silva, was there, Silva Logan Sharp, and her pianist, now boyfriend, was playing, and they didn't sit in with us, but they did like a special tribute to Nile. And then he came up on stage, and I'm playing, but he was just, I felt like the jilted lover because he never paid any. You didn't pay any attention to me.
What about me?
Right. He's like, look over here. So he never did.
You wore your best dress that night, Ralph, and he didn't even look at you.
He didn't even look at me, man. I had my hair done. And then a very short time after, there was an event that I got called to do, and he was co-musical director on the event. And that's the first time he actually heard me play. Again, nothing. No fireworks or nothing. He just, a good gig, that was it. Finish. And then a drummer by the name of Nathaniel Townsley called me and said, he called me, and when I saw him call, it's like, we don't really talk like that, so it had to be for some kind of gig. So I didn't know he was playing with Chic at the time. So he called me up and said, hey man, listen, I'm playing with Joe Zawinul and I need a sub for the Chic gig. And I was like, fine. I mean, I was at the Apollo playing at the time. I was like, okay, this could be good.
Yeah.
So I took the gig, and they sent me the material, and I rehearsed it. And right before we left, we were going to Switzerland, to Gstaad. Niall said he wanted to hear me. So they called me up, and me and Jerry Barnes wasn't the bass player at the time. It was Barry Johnson.
Okay.
And we went in the studio, rehearsal studio, me, Niall, and Barry Johnson. So when I get there, Barry's there. Niall's not there. I set up my music, because what I normally do for any gig is I write out my own charts, because it not only gives me a chance to study the very intricate nuances of a song, but then I have all of my notes right there, and I want to nail every gig.
Yeah.
So Niall comes in. He says, hey, how you doing? I say, hey, how you doing now? So that was the first time we actually spoke.
Yeah.
So he says, all right, let's take it from the medley. So I turn my page to the medley, and we start playing the medley. We get about 2.5 songs in. He goes, stops. He goes, okay. And starts packing up his stuff. And I got nervous, like, this is not, what just happened? So in my master classes, I teach ask questions. If you need to know something for your chair, ask questions. So as he was packing up, I said, now, was that cool? He said, yeah, you sound great. I'll see you in Switzerland. And that was it. So next time I saw him was
the gig.
Yeah, I don't even know if he came to sound check, but came to the gig. I did the whole gig. Afterward, Silva, the same young woman that I saw at the event, comes over to me and says, Niall wants to know if you want the gig. And the first thing I said, what about Nathaniel? That's my boy. He's like, what about that? He said, well, we were holding the chair for someone that Niall wanted, so he wasn't the drummer that he wanted. He'd like you to do the gig. And I said, absolutely. And that was just about 17 years ago. I actually was leaving the Apollo at the time. I was having some difficulties there. So it didn't feel good anymore to work at the Apollo. And I love, to this day, I still love the Apollo, and I'm honored that I worked there for so many years.
Yeah.
But moving over to play with Niall and meet Niall has been amazing. I'm so glad that this is going on in my life right now.
And what year was this?
So it's 17 minus, you got me doing math. So this is right around, let me see, 2008, 18, 19, 20. So it was 2006, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, 2006.
Okay.
I did the math.
Don't ask me to do that.
Yeah, and he's easy to work for. Niall is probably one of the simplest band leaders I've ever had the pleasure of working behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen him a lot. I've got to observe him. My younger days, I only knew Nile as he did the David Bowie Let's Dance. He worked with Stevie Ray, and that's what I knew about him. But watching him these last several years, it's just amazing. I believe we did a gig. I won't say the city and I won't say the artist, but someone got up and played with you guys. And now came off stage and he's like, man, he's up there asking about time and leave that to me. You just play. But your band is amazing, man. You guys are a machine.
So just to analyze what you're seeing, or what I feel you're seeing, every single person in that band has come through some local situation for an extended period of time. Like working in a club where there was only 2 people kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Working all night, doing 3 sets, and you might get $50 kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So the attitude, including now, is that we always play from our heart. I don't care how many people are in the audience or how many people are not in the audience or what the weather is. Whoever's there, we're going to entertain them. Mm-hmm. So what you're seeing on stage is a bunch of people that really are in tune with each other, and we translate that forward. So when Jerry and I are looking at each other and he's playing bass, that's for the purpose of connecting the bottom of what we're doing and making sure that it's tight. And then Niall comes with the rhythm guitar and it just blends in together, and it's always a great feeling.
Yeah.
I really like working with them.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of bands and you can always tell when a band is phoning it in. Yeah. Like, what you just said, like everyone came up through some local situation. Those people, those artists that are like, I don't care. Tonight might be the night that someone's out in the crowd and they're going to see me perform and they're going to see my energy. So like you said, whether there's 2 or 2 million people there, they're going to put on the same show.
I play exactly the same way. And that's just a testament to how we all feel about entertainment and making people happy.
Yeah. You have a spot in the set. Everyone knows, you play this classic Bowie, Nile Rodgers song. Did Bowie ever get to see you play that?
No, I wish he had, but here's how that song came about. I had taken a short break from working with Nile to work with the artist that I'd worked with for many years in Japan. His name is Toshi Kubota. It's a big star there. And I was doing the tour, but I also had taken Niall's biography with me called The Freak. And I get to the chapter about meeting Bowie. And I knew nothing about it. But this is so funny how sometimes you be in the music business your whole life and you miss something. I love the song Let's Dance. Everybody loves the song. Yeah. It's one of those crossover songs that hit the Black community, just like Benny and the Jets. There's songs like that transcends everything. Yeah. And Let's Dance was one of those songs. So I'm reading the chapter. Niall was hanging out with Billy Idol, and they walk into this club at the same time that Bowie walks in. And Niall knows Bowie knows Niall, but they never met. So right as they introduced themselves, Billy Idol threw up. You got to read the book. It's really good. Billy Idol throws up, and Niall and David go into this club and they sit down, and from Niall's recollection, they talked for an extended period of time. So Bowie was like, listen, why don't you come to the house? We can write some music together. And, so he did. He went to Bowie's house, and Bowie came to him one night. He said he was sleeping. Bowie came to him and said, listen, wake up. I got to tell you about this song I have called Let's Dance. And he sung it to him, and it was nothing like what we hear. So he said, leave it to me. I'll come up with something for the song. And this genius producer, thinker, writer, creator came up with the whole vibe of Let's Dance. So I was totally blown away and shocked and stupefied because I didn't know this. I didn't know that Nile had anything to do with Let's Dance. So I get off the train and I call him. And I remember the conversation so well. He picks up the phone. He says, hello. I said, dude, the first words out of my mouth, I said, dude, you produced Let's Dance. And Nile has this really slow laugh. He goes, ah. And he just laughs. And I said, bro, we got to put this song in the set. We have to. But I wasn't thinking, I was thinking maybe the keyboard player could sing it. I wasn't thinking me at all.
Yeah.
But I just wanted the song in the set because I thought it would really work. And he said to me, well, if you learn it, we'll do it. And I was like, no, that's not what he said, no, I think you do a great job. Learn it. We'll do it. So now I done put my whole foot in my mouth. So now I got to learn Let's Dance and play that groove, which is actually a 4-bar phrase, and then make it sound comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But because of so many years in clubs and playing and doing, singing and playing, I got it.
Yeah.
And it's become a really integral part of our show. When it first came on the set, it was like number 5 in the set, and then it went to number 7, and then it went to 3 songs before the end. Now it's the song before Good Times.
Yeah.
So, and then this whole hype thing that I do, I learned that from Dougie Fresh. Dougie Fresh is the hype man. He's my boy. But I've watched him hype arenas.
Yeah.
And I just learned how to do that hype part from him.
Yeah.
He's really good in front of people. So
Yeah.
it works. I love doing it though.
That hype part works because I remember watching you guys sound check to an empty arena and you start telling the people working, all you people in yellow shirts. Everybody's just looking around at your sound check. So it's great, man. I remember it's it's cool, but it definitely is one of the highlights of that. And to compete with what you guys are playing, the hits you guys are playing, the songs Niall's written, that's saying a lot. That it's a highlight of that set.
It's really a fun band, man. I mean, we're on. I want you to watch just the dynamics on the stage, how much fun we're actually having up there.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
And I'm over on stage right, so I watch the horn players a lot too.
Yeah, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
So I goof with them, I goof with Jerry, and Kim and I are always talking.
Right on.
It's funny. It's a fun show. We just love entertaining.
Have you ever had a nightmare gig? I ask every musician if they've ever had a nightmare gig.
I've had a few. I mean, as you said it, I recalled 3.
Uh-huh.
3 different people, freaking nightmares. Like it was, nightmares for different reasons too.
Yeah.
One, I worked behind the legend Martha Reeves from Motown,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know her. I know her music. But when she came in, she had these charts, and they were, been around a long time. A lot of people put notes on the charts and everything. So I had studied her music before because I knew what we were going to play. But she, bless her heart, she was the meanest person. She was so mean. I mean, I remember one time, as I normally do, I clocked all the tempos in my little metronome, and I started playing the tempo. And she turned around and, what are you doing? I make the tempos. And I went, okay, I'm sorry. I'm just doing my job over here. But at the end of the run that we did a run in Europe. I happened to bump into her getting off the elevator. And I said, hi, have a good night. She said, you did a really great job. And she all of a sudden was the sweetest person in the world. So I just think her game face was a little much for me, because I'm I don't like that kind of stuff. But I realized, she was cool. And then the other nightmare gig was a nightmare, and one of the best teaching lessons that I have, to the point that I talk about in my master classes, was Roberta Flack. Sweet lady, but the gig was so intense.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be the hardest gig I've ever played because everything is so tacit and everything is so, placement involved. And, but again, I'm cool with Roberta. Always have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have one more. I think I'll leave that name because, him and I still, anyway, let's leave that one. Yeah,
that's what we talked about at the beginning. If there's anything you don't want to answer,
I'm not in the business of trying to blow folks up, but
yeah, that's fine.
All I can say is this: on your climb in the ladder to famous success, don't forget the guys that was there with you in the trenches, and don't start treating them like they don't matter.
Yeah,
that's a painful act, and it will cause a lot of hurt to an individual. Yeah. Because of that. It's like you don't know where it came from. You get kind of blindsided by it.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm with Nile Rodgers. I tell them all the time, you saved my musical life.
Right on, man. They always say, don't screw anyone on your way up because you meet them on your way down.
There you go. It was a I quit, you're fired kind of vibe with this situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, man, I know Chic, they keep you busy. And probably not much time for any other gigs. But do you do other gigs when you have downtime?
When I have downtime, there's clinics that I do. I do a lot of drum clinics in the middle of what I'm doing. I have a manager in Dublin, and I also have an assistant in New York that helps me with coordinate my life.
Okay.
So when I'm not playing with Nile and there's time, I will go and do some master classes in other places. So on this particular run, after we're done with Australia, I'm going to Japan to do some master classes and then over to Dubai to do some a gig with Nile and Chic.
Okay.
But I love to teach. I've always loved that.
What does your master class entail?
I came up with this platform called How to Get and Keep a Gig. Uh-huh. My masterclass idea came by way of frustration of some of the masterclasses that I was actually seeing. Some of them were good, but many of them were magic tricks. And this is no disrespect to anyone because I'm not going to name anyone.
Yeah.
But many of the so-called masterclasses I was seeing was someone just doing a lot of things to an audience of people that were going, ooh. But my thing was, a masterclass shows that you've mastered the instrument, but now you have to translate to the audience how you've done that. And many times they weren't.
Yeah.
So when people left, they would go, man, that dude can play. What'd you learn? Yeah, he could play.
Show me what you got.
Right. There wasn't any substance of education there. So I started teaching as a teenager in drum and bugle corps. I used to teach ensembles.
Uh-huh.
It started when one of my other mentors, Ricky Mangum, allowed me to teach with him. And from that point, I just love teaching. I have the patience. My wife says I'm the most patient man in the world. But I just feel it's important to give that information back and pay it forward. Somebody did it for me, and I don't want to just take it with me. I want to give it away. Mm-hmm. That's the riches, is giving away education. That's the gem. So my masterclass is called How to Get and Keep a Gig, and I have different components that I go through. One is I talk about the word can't and how detrimental that is. Having the word but behind your name. Ralph is good, but. And when you hear but, everybody, they didn't hear Ralph is good. They heard but. Yeah. But what? Oh, man, he's on drugs. And okay, who else you got? So I explained to people how important it is to have a name that people will honor and respect. Yeah. That's your calling card.
Yeah.
And then I came up with this thing, basically looking back on my life, and I call it the 5 Ps: passion, power, placement, performance, and purity. And I expound on all of those and what it means. And I have little anecdotes that I talk about, and then I play and show people stuff and just get them to understand their power, their energy, their strength. Most of it is about getting out of your own way.
Yeah.
And understanding that if you do that, that the road is paved with many great things if you allow yourself and not second guess. You know, you will fall, but that's important as getting up.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of success stories. Just recently, something very emotional happened when I was at a festival in Europe about a month ago. And when we came off stage, we got right into the cars and went straight to the buses. And when I got there, I went, oh man, I left my stuff in the dressing room. So I got one of the vehicles to take me back. And when I went in the dressing room area, there was this young kid just sitting there. I thought he was security. So I went, hey, how you doing? He said hello to me. And I walked in the dressing room and I got my stuff. And I immediately came out and he said, how you doing? I said, I'm okay. He said, great show tonight. He said, you don't remember me, do you? I said, no, I don't. He said, well, you came to my school and you said something that changed my life. And I just wanted to thank you. So he was sitting there waiting and I didn't know I was going back. That's why I was so like blown away.
Yeah. Because
if I would have grabbed my stuff, I probably would not have seen this young man. He said, but there was something at the master class that you said that changed my life. Now I'm touring. I'm a touring musician.
Wow.
And I just wanted to thank you for that. So that was a great moment in my life because you want people to hear you. You want people to understand that you're speaking from a very passionate point, a very true and honest point. And this young kid who I didn't remember from him being in the audience said that I said something to him. This kid from the Bronx said something to this kid that changed his life. And that made a lot of big difference to me.
Wow.
You know, at that moment.
I can imagine, you know, that how that felt. Like you said, if you would have just did a runner and had your stuff ready on the bus
right.
or on the van, you wouldn't have had that moment. You wouldn't have known. He wouldn't have been able to tell you.
Right.
I'm sure it was just as important to him to tell you that.
Yeah, it was. It was very emotional for me. I'm an emotional guy, and everyone would tell you how I am. My passion is deep with family, with friends, with my business. My passion is deep, and I was happy that I helped this kid. You know, I don't know what he was feeling or doing before, but whatever I said that contributed, because you know, there's family and mothers and fathers and ups and downs that changes your life.
Yeah.
That somehow in his palette of things that I'm sitting there somewhere.
Do you think that comes from the when you were younger wanting to be a teacher?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I saw myself as a young kid before drums doing two things. It was either going to be engineering or I was going to be a guidance counselor. That was the two things, either engineering or I'm going to be a guidance counselor. That's okay. So that's part of it. So when I got a chance to start teaching as a teenager and just learning and honing in on how to motivate, it just stuck with me, and I will always try to teach and give back.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Right on. You to get back to your master class, you said an important thing that you teach is to get out of your own way. That's a hard lesson to learn for some people. It kind of comes off. What I'm getting is it's almost like a motivational speech as well as this is how I got here.
Well, to me, the drumming is the commercial. And the talking is the actual show.
The master class. Yeah.
That's for me. The drumming is just I'm going to play because I'm supposed to, I guess, but I'd rather talk the whole time if it was possible. Getting out of your own way is the main thing because I look at the brain, even though it's a membrane, I look at it as a muscle. Mm-hmm. And any muscle grows when you exercise it, and then any muscle atrophies when you don't. So many times as you're growing up in your environment and things, sometimes you talk yourself into a corner and you build your own bricks and your own walls. And now you have the job through whatever means to now break down these bricks that you created yourself. Now that could come from the environment. It could come from post-traumatic stress of things that went on in your life. But I'm there to let them know, listen, I grew up in very humble beginnings. I didn't have my first kid until I was 18. But I had a belief and I tried to make sure. And my feeling is, if these are the steps that I've taken that I've told you today, hopefully you can pull from that to motivate yourself to do the things, but mainly just get out of your own way and don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people stop what they're doing is they're afraid to fail and they have a plan B. I'm not a plan B guy. Never have been.
Yeah.
I'm actually writing a book called No Plan B.
Yeah.
And I know some people will go, that's not good advice. Well, most people that I know who are very successful bet it all of it. I mean, I can go down the line from technical jobs to musicians on down. They bet it all.
Yeah.
There was no half stepping. There was no, well, if I don't do this, then I have that to fall back on.
Yeah.
That's great parental thinking. But individual thinking, I think it's a different way, because I raised my daughter to be independent. I've given her the foundation and the tools to take with her. And then I let her make her own decisions.
Yeah.
That's what I think parenting is about. It's not, I can say to her, no, you want to be a musician, but you should take that nursing thing so you can fall back. No, now you're not trying to do this 100%.
Yeah.
If this is your true passion, you have to be willing to die for it, honestly. Yeah. You got to be willing to be homeless, live in your car, live with a friend, but you're practicing and working hard all the time. So when you look back, pass or fail, you passed.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You absolutely passed, because you can now look and go, you know what? No matter what, first of all, I did it my way, and I did it hard and full. Yeah. And that's what I think is important.
You know what? Yeah, it's 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
In 40 years, you may find yourself just drumming in some club. You're drumming, or you're playing guitar, or you're singing, or you're acting, or that's what living the life the way you want to live it.
Because it's not about the money. Listen, man, I mean, in all honesty, for many years of my career, there was no real money involved, but I love what I was doing.
Yeah.
I wasn't first call. I was sometimes third call, and then I got to second call, and then, but it was the journey for me that was important to get there. I mean, when I meet the drummers that I looked up to, I'm still blown away by that. It's not like the other day I just met Questlove for the first time. I was honored. Like, yo, I love this dude, man. I love what he's doing and everything. It wasn't like, oh, hey, Questlove. No, I was like, yo, finally. I told him, I said, I finally got a chance to shake your hand. When I met Bernard Purdie last year, 2022, August, I cried. I couldn't contain myself. I'm like, this is Bernard Purdie standing in front of me. I hugged him like he was my father. But that's just how I feel about what I'm doing. It's not, I'm still amazed by, and I'm still a fan of.
Yeah.
So, and that's going to be forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I met Questlove the other night too.
Yeah.
And when I met him, I shook his hand and he said, I'm Amir. And I was like, come on, man. And he goes, I'm Questlove. That's the kind of, but I'm saying, that was my next question, man. The heroes, what's it like? How are you meeting your heroes? And have you met a lot of them?
Okay. So here's what's odd. I'm humble to these guys, and I never see myself as an equal. Or I don't.
Yeah.
These are the guys that help me to grow by listening to them on records and listening to them on the radio. So when I meet them, I always have that I'm not worthy feeling because you've done so much for me. You know,
Yeah.
no, I know you, man. You're doing this, that, and the other. And I'm knowing, yeah, but I'm actually, words are coming out of my mouth to your ears and back and forth. It's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like the first time that I got a chance to send a text message to Robin Russell, who was the drummer for New Birth.
Uh-huh.
I grew up like that was one of the most amazing albums is an album called Birthday by New Birth. And the drummer was amazing. So when I texted him on social media, I said, hey, how you doing? I'm Ralph and from the Apollo Theater and da-da-da-da-da. Just wanted to tell you, man, that I think you are amazing and always loved what you've done. Hey, Ralph, thank you so. I'm like, oh, what? You know, first time I met Buddy Williams, session master.
Yeah.
I mean, done so many, blown away. When I was talking to Buddy on the phone the other day, I'm still like, I'm talking to Buddy Williams. Steve Gadd, same thing. First time I spoke to Steve Gadd, he's the one, Steve is responsible for my drum endorsement. He actually called Yamaha and said, you should hook this guy up because he's got something here.
Yeah.
And every time I see him, he treats me like like I have a great Steve Gadd story. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, man.
So back in high school, I was in senior band with a guy named Jeff Samahano. And Jeff played the drum right next to me. And Jeff was also studying to go to college. So he was always practicing early in the morning, his techniques. And he did go to music college. But he was always talking about certain drummers. And my favorite drummers back then in high school was Billy Cobham, Lenny White, Bernard Purdy, Max Roach, Elvin Jones, Robin Russell, Zigaboo, a couple more guys that I just loved what they did. But he was always talking about Peter Erskine, Danny Serafin from Chicago, Steve Gadd. And I didn't know Steve Gadd. I didn't know him yet.
Yeah.
But after he spoke about it, I started looking and he told me the songs and I listened going, man, this Steve Gadd dude is ridiculous. So we would go to my friend's house, Ed York, and Ed lived on the other side of the Bronx and Ed had a lot of records and we would listen to different things. And we always back then read the album covers.
Yeah.
So I became a Steve Gadd fan like everybody else. I loved everything he did. So my friend Artie Durant, who lived across the street from me in the Bronx, and Kenny Drew Jr., his father, Kenny Drew Sr., was a famous jazz pianist, and Kenny was ridiculous, way beyond us. We found out that Steve Gadd was sick. Now, what's so odd is this is before social media, so I don't know how we found out. We found out that Steve Gadd was sick and that he had pneumonia. But we also knew where Steve Gadd lived. At that particular time, he was living on 30th Street in Manhattan between 7th and 8th Avenues. So we came up with this crazy idea to go downtown. Now, we're all teenagers. We're going to go downtown. We're going to knock on his door. We're going to act like it's a rehearsal studio. But then when he comes to the door, we're going to say, get well soon. Just get well. We want you to get well. So 4 of us. Freddie Coleman, Artie Durant, Kenny Drew, and myself go downtown. We go up to his door, little doe-eyed little boys, and we knock on the door, and a man opens the door. It's not Steve Gadd. So I remember him being on the phone at the time. So he stops the phone call and he says, "Hey, how you doing?" And we said, "Is this a rehearsal studio?" And he says, "No, I'm really sorry." And he starts to close the door. And I said, well, to be very honest with you, we know that Steve Gadd lives here and he's not feeling well. And we just came by to say, get well. And he went, wow. He said, well, believe it or not, I'm his doctor. And Steve is here. Let me see if he'll come to the door. So the door closes. And when it opens the door, Steve Gadd is standing there. And it was like Yoda. We couldn't move. We just, oh, Steve Gadd, So, so we all say hello, and he asks all of our names. He says, it was really, really nice of you guys to come down and, wish me well. I really appreciate that. And like I said, he asked our names, and then we turned around and left. It was like, oh, we leaving Stevie. I mean, it was just like, so not too much longer after that, I get a call from my mentor, Ricky Mangum, to do a recording session for this guy named Miko Minardo. Now, Miko had a big hit song with the disco version of Star Wars. The composer was a very famous guy named Harold Wheeler. So they called Ricky. I don't know how they got in touch with him, but they called him to do side B, one song, like they did on the first record. They used some young kids to do a song called. I didn't even know what the song was called yet, but we composed something, and we went in and we played these drum corps, drum snares, and stuff like that. And it just so happens that day in the studio right across from us was Richard T., Eric Gale, Steve Gadd, and Bob James doing a session over there. So I came out, there was a coffee machine, I'm getting something, and Steve walks out. And he's standing he's on my left side. And I see him, and I keep glancing over at him, and he's probably saying to himself, what the hell is wrong with this kid? So I look at him, he looks back at me, he says, hello. And I said, do you remember me? And he says, aren't you one of the kids who came to my house? I said, yeah. He said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm doing a session with Miko next door. He said, wow, that's really cool. He said, give me your name again. I said, my name is Ralph. And I don't know if he has a photographic memory.
Yeah.
But many years later, I'd seen him. Maybe he was being kind and said, I remember meeting you or whatever. But that's when he asked me what drums did I play. And I told him, I play on anything that anyone puts in front of me. But I am endorsed by Zildjian. He said, give me your name. I'll have somebody call you. And at that particular time, I was busy. I was doing most of the clubs in New York. I was playing at the Apollo. Plus I was doing a TV show at the Apollo. And I was doing the Caroline Ray show on ABC. So I was busy.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in my office at the Caroline Ray show because I was the band leader. And my phone rang, and it was Yamaha. And they said, hey, this is so-and-so from Yamaha. Steve Gadd told me to call you. Welcome to the family. And that was it. And I've been with them ever since. And anytime I can get to see Steve somewhere, I'll go. He's a nice guy.
What an honor, Raul, right?
Oh, God. Unbelievable, man. Again, talking to him even now is still... Dennis Chambers, same thing. I called Dennis the other day. When I talked to Dennis, I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking to Dennis Chambers. Incredible. I'm very fortunate, very lucky.
Right on.
Yeah.
And just being around, like, we've been around each other for several years now.
Yes.
You are humble, and you love drums, and you radiate how much you love.
Oh,
drums,
man, thank you. I do. I mean, I can't think of a better place for anyone other than being behind a drum set. I don't care what you could be a automaker. Just play some drums. It just changes your life.
My next question was like, I mean, playing with Nile, you've had an amazing career, and I'm sure you've had a lot of awe moments, but that to me is your awe moment.
Yeah, it is. It's, yeah.
You went from, I mean, this is one of your guys. You had the bravery to go tell him to get well. I mean, that's only something dumb kids think, oh, right. He's going to love it.
Right. Exactly. The man had freaking pneumonia. His lung, he was sick. He was really sick. Yeah. But he did recover fully, which was incredible.
And so that's an all moment.
Yeah.
That's just something that,
It was crazy, man. I'm so glad that we did that we had the gumption to go down and knock on this man's door.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm glad. I could listen to those stories all day. I'm sure a lot of people could.
Yeah.
Oh man, let's talk about soul snacks.
Oh, the cookies.
Yes. I've been fortunate enough to taste your cookies.
Oh man.
Just once. But how did soul snacks get started?
When I was a little kid, I was really young, we used to go to my grandmother's house, who lived with my aunt. And my cousin Vincent was there. He's a year younger than me. And since we were both the youngest, when my grandmother would bake, we had the job of cleaning the bowl because we were the youngest. We were the two youngest kids. And those early memories of that time just always made me smile, always made me happy. The family being together, just playing. Me and my cousin Vincent, I loved him, but we would fight a lot. We were the same age. We would just fight, but I loved him.
Mm-hmm.
So I always wanted to have that family vibe. So I watched my grandmother bake and I watched my mother bake, and I just picked it up. And I kept it up after they both passed away. And one of the first things I had done after my mother passed away is I started a production company in the same apartment. And one day, my guys were over, Gerard Harmon and Armando Colon. And I went in the kitchen and I said, listen, I'm going to bake some cookies. And they said, what? I said, yeah, I'm going to bake some cookies. So I went.
That just sounds funny.
It does, right? So they was like, what's up with that, brother? So I went. It's true. So I went in the kitchen and I made a batch of cookies and I brought them back in the studio, and they was like, hey, yo, man, these are killing, man. Just make sure you have them every time we come over now to do some work. So right about that time, my girlfriend moved in. And when the holidays came, we were trying to figure out, we wanted, young love. We want to announce we're together and let's do so, but we didn't have any money. So I said, why don't we just bake the cookies? She said, okay, that's a good idea. So we went downtown there was this 99-cent store right behind Macy's on 34th Street. And we bought all of these holiday tins, very cheap, came back and we made cookies and we put them in, we sent them out to everyone in our families, all of our friends. And everyone said how great they tasted, that this could be a great idea for a business. And I thought about it before, but her and I together, we could work together, that kind of thing. So we started a company, and the first name of the company, because we both, she was from the projects too, in Manhattan in Spanish Harlem, and she graduated from Juilliard and actually moved to Spain to dance with Jose Greco.
Oh, wow.
So if you know flamenco dance, you know that Jose Greco was one of the masters of, and she was his partner for a while. But then she had an injury and had to come home suddenly, and I met her at the Apollo Theater. She was actually working as one of the riggers there. Anyway, we moved in together. People loved the cookies. We started the business together. The fact that we're both from the projects, from the ghetto, we call them ghetto cookies. That was the joke name. But then I realized, I said, wait a minute. The ghetto always gets such a bad rap, but there's so many great things that have come out of the ghetto, people and styles and fashion.
Yeah.
That I don't look at the word ghetto in like a negative way. And the slang for ghetto wasn't popular then. Like, it's all of a sudden, like a couple of years later, anything that was raunchy, they would call it ghetto.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where did that come from? I wear the ghetto as a badge of honor. So we was sold a lot of cookies. The first thing that happened is the very first night that we decided to send the cookies or do anything with the cookies, I was working at an open mic at Sylvia's Soul Food restaurant. Mm-hmm. Right next door is a place called Sylvia's also. My friend Melba, who is now a big restaurateur, global restaurateur, she was the proprietor of the open mic that night. We were friends. So I called up and said, Mel, I got this idea. I want to sell cookies. So can I start there? And she said, sure, bring them by. So I brought by, this is how crude it was. I went on my computer. I made this logo that looked like the projects, and I put a rainbow over the top of it. I'll send it to you so you can see. You'll be the only person that ever had this since then. I printed it out on regular paper, not even labels. I put school glue on it, put it on a brown paper bag, put the cookies in a sandwich bag inside the brown paper bag, and took a piece of Scotch tape to close the bag. Talking primitive. And we took about 20 bags down to Melba's and samples. We sold them for like 6 cookies, $5. That's what we did. So we get there. Shelby, I don't know if you know her, that sang with Prince. The bald-haired girl was Prince.
No, I didn't know her, but I know who you're talking about.
She was the singer for the night. She was the MC for the night. And she announced the cookies. And people sample them and they buy the bags. I think they bought them just because it was, so we got ghetto cookies here tonight. People's like, ghetto cookies? What the hell's ghetto cookies? It just so happens at the bar, there was a guy from a magazine. And Melba was telling him about us. And he decided to do a story on us. But I was so ill prepared, I didn't want to give him my home number, and I didn't have a phone. So I gave him my sister's pager number from work with the PIN number, one of those. And she said, no, it's cool. Okay, you're only going to probably get a few calls. No problem. Gave it to him. The article comes out. First day, she calls me up and says, get a pen. Let me give you these names. A few hours later, get a pen, more calls. The next day, I guess all the subscriptions hit people's houses because I was writing down so many names. Now my apartment has like no room to make cookies. There's one little oven. So I tell my friend Artie, my friend Patrice, who lived across the street, his brother Artie was the drummer. His mother had a brownstone and the bottom was vacant. And I said, yo, Patrice, ask your mother if I can rent the space because I got to expand my business. And he said, I'm not asking her. You ask her. You know how strict she is. So I go over to Miss Durant and I give her my whole business plan. Like I said, Miss Durant, I have a cookie company. We were just in a magazine and things are growing. I got to move and I got to gut your kitchen and put in a convection oven and a hood and a 3-tub sink. And I got to have a preparation area and a storage area and an office, and your place is perfect for me. And she heard my whole story and she just looked at me, with that mama look.
I see it.
Look.
Yeah.
She just looked at me and she went, okay, you can do it. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And I couldn't believe it because she wouldn't even give it to her son. I guess he was too afraid to ask. So we started the business, and from there, we got calls from the New York Times, the Post. We ended up being on the TV Food Network. I hired a publicist at that point. Then it started to go crazy. And in the midst of our growth, me and my girlfriend started going through problems because every place we would go, she would get upset that people were not associating her with the cookies.
Yeah.
And I would tell her, I said, both of our pictures are on this thing, but I'm out in the public more than you. There's no reason for that. But eventually she just walked away. She says, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I don't want to have anything to do with these cookies. So she left and I kept it up for a little while. And then I couldn't do it anymore because my schedule had gotten so incredibly busy.
Yeah.
So my lawyer said, listen, it's your recipe. Change the name of the company. Just restart the company again. And that's when I met my wife and we had a baby. And then a few years later, I started the company back. Now we're in Walmart. We're in Kroger. I had a store in Japan. I'm looking at a store now in Manchester. So it just is that testament of getting out of your own way. Yeah. We now have gluten-free vegan cookies and, it's just taken on a whole direction that started from my apartment. Yeah.
That's amazing, man.
Very true, yeah.
That's amazing. But you're right. It's that whole get out of your own way.
Yeah. I mean, it's the what if part, bro, that scares me. That's the part that scares me. It's the what if. When you get old, what if I would have tried? What if I would have? That scares me because that to me will lead me to depression if I have to do that. I want I want to know by trying and failing, because now I'm successful because I tried.
Yeah.
Because success is not how much money you make, it's in finishing the thought. And that's the thing that I try to tell people. Success is not how much money you make, it's in finishing the thought. That's the prize.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I grew up being afraid. I grew up expecting or wanting to do what was expected of me, and then failing, and then getting even more depressed because I failed. And it wasn't till, in so many words, somebody told me, get out of your own way.
Right.
You know, be afraid, but then just do it anyway.
Right.
And I don't come from a family that tries to. It's not a bad thing. You want to be a 9 to 5, be a 9 to 5. You want to do other. And when I started doing this, it was just like, I like this, and it's scary when you're a single parent and you're like, I got to tour. Now I got to figure out the other part. I got to figure out insurance. I got to figure out this. But you know what? I'm going to do it because, I don't want to live and go like, what if I would have tried that,
Right.
while I'm doing something I hate doing. And I always tell people, like, there's so many people out there that work jobs that they hate, and there's so many people out of work. Like, I do something I love because I tried and it worked out for me, And I was still in the mindset back then when I started. They're like, what if it doesn't work out? I can go back to my old job. It wasn't until I got out of that I was like, I started getting the calls and being that guy. Like, then I realized, if I network and I become the guy that doesn't have a butt behind his name,
Right. Right.
We need a guy to go into Canada for a run, and our tech can't do it because he's got, a record.
Right.
Well, this guy's your guy.
Right.
You don't have to call anybody else. He'll leave tomorrow.
Right.
And I got that reputation as the guy that'll just, yeah.
Right. You got it. And you'll handle it.
And the best way that I wouldn't do it is like, I can't because I'm working.
Right. Which is great.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it, man. It's an amazing story, man. You have an amazing story, how you came up. And like I said, you're very humble. And when I came to you, was it just yesterday? I came to you and I said, hey, Ralph, listen, I don't want to bother you. Before I got it out, you're like, I'll do your podcast. I was just waiting for you to ask me.
No, because I heard, and I what I didn't know, to be honest with you, if there was specific subjects or people.
No.
So I didn't feel slighted by it at all. I wanted to do it because...
You know what I felt? I felt you wouldn't. There's so many people that I want, and I've been told no so many times that it's become like, all right, it's not personal. It's just they won't.
You know what? I learned something very important from an interview that I heard with Ray Charles, and it's kind of something that I live by, but it was so affirming to hear it come from him. As you know, Ray Charles is a legend.
Yeah.
Did some amazing things, and he's blind. My mentor, Ricky Williams, that I told you about. Mm-hmm. What I didn't tell you is Ricky's blind. And drums wasn't Ricky's first instrument. It was keyboards. But I watched him every day get out of his own way. He would just do stuff like he was a sighted person. And it always intrigued me, because if he can do that, what is wrong with me at any point? Yeah. So I'd heard Ray Charles do this interview. I was on a flight, and he talked about the when Ahmet Ertegun came to him to say, I want you on my label. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, yeah, we could talk about it, but I just want to let you know, I want to own my own masters. And masters are the tapes that your music is on, that record companies usually own, which I never understood. But he said, I want to own my music. That's my stuff, but I want it to be mine. You can have me, but those are mine. And Ahmed said, well, this is kind of unheard of. And he came back to him and said, you got a deal. And then Ray Charles says, listen, I didn't know if he was going to say yes, and I didn't know if he was going to say no. But if I didn't ask, I knew what the answer was.
Yeah.
So that's why it's always important to ask, because you just never know. You're 50% to yes, just like you're 50% to no.
Yeah.
So it's a middle road thing. So that's how I always think about stuff. I just ask.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so to you, I say, ask.
Yeah.
You might get 25 no's, but you might get that one yes from someone.
Yeah.
You know, that says, yeah, of course I'll do you. You know, how much time you need? You need an hour, 2 hours, whatever.
Yeah.
You're a good guy. And I think most people will probably say, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. Some of the people that say no, I don't think it's their snobbiness. I think that they might feel like they don't have anything to offer to a podcast. And that could be a way to look at it. When my mother died, I became very depressed for a while, and I was still functioning. So I was one of those kind of people that you would go out into the public world being one thing, but the minute you got in your own space, you just turned into something else.
Yeah.
I used to have to talk myself out of bed, you know, and this went on for I lost my girlfriend right as my mother died. I lost the girl I loved for, like, unbelievably loved. She's a singer, and she sung with everybody from the Rolling Stones to Bruce Springsteen, and we're still friends to this day. But when I lost her love, and my mother, and my gig with Evelyn Champagne King, I was a mess for a while, and it took me a long time to get up out of it. But I was still functioning every day. But that after I got out of it, it came by way of one day I was in my apartment by myself. And, you know, when you look in the mirror, I believe that there's two ways you look in the mirror. And one way you don't look all the time. The first way is you're looking to groom yourself, get yourself together, look at your clothes. Okay, I'm ready for the world. I'm out the door. But then every now and then you'll look in the mirror and see a reflection of somebody that is you, but you're looking back at you like you're not you, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Every now and very rare does that happen. And one day I caught my image in the mirror and I stopped and I just stared at myself. And then I started talking to myself. And the first words that came out of my mouth is, what in the hell are you doing? Your mother would just die if she saw you acting like this. You're doing crazy stuff. You're not treating yourself. You're not playing. What are you doing? Your mother didn't raise you like that. I really had a conversation if, and in the beginning it felt weird, but maybe like 10 minutes into it, I really was giving myself the same advice that I was giving to somebody else. And I actually came out of it a new person, realizing that my brain needs new exercise. My attitude about life needs new exercise. And every situation, good or bad, is good, but you got to find the lesson in what was good about it. So after I lost her, I realized finally that she was never really gone. As long as I have her lessons and her voice, and I could see her face, and I could live by her great tools, then she's never gone. There's just one aspect of her that's not here.
Yeah.
But she's always going to be with me, and I'm always going to, live to honor her and do all these things. And it started to help my brain and my posture to come back and to grow and to be a better person. And that's a large part of why I talk to people and tell people and teach people about life, because if you can learn to understand that your bad days are your good days too, there's so much more brightness you'll have in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be so down on your soul and yourself and your position. You realize that tomorrow's a new day, that you got another 24 to get this right.
Yeah.
And even if that's not right, you look back and go, okay, so what did I do wrong? Which is great, because you can analyze yourself.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing, man. So I would say, my opinion, ask everybody. Everybody that you want, ask them.
Yeah.
When
I started this, my partner and I, we're going on 3 years of doing this every week, consistently put out an episode. Sometimes we freak out, like, we don't have nobody. And in the beginning, I was just ignorant. And I was just like when you messaged one of your heroes, I messaged, Rudy Sarzo, bass player.
Yeah.
I just messaged him on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. I've been doing like 6 episodes already. I didn't even know I'm supposed to hold the mic to my mouth. I was like, down here, you know?
Right.
And then he said, reach out to me in 2 weeks. We'll set up a time. And I knew right then he meant it.
Yeah.
I'm busy right now. So 2 weeks went by. I was like counting down the days. I messaged him. He messaged me right back. This is my number. Call me. We're going to do it on this day. I can only give you 30 minutes. And I was like, and this is a hero. I'm Mexican.
Right.
So growing up, I listened to a lot of rock. He played for Ozzy. He played for Quiet Riot. And he was Cuban. He was Hispanic.
Right.
So to see somebody that looked like me doing it, he was a hero.
Right.
So it was Memorial Day. I think it was our 15th episode. 10th or 15th. It was one of those monumentous, like, ooh, we made it to 10. It was one of those. And I called him up. He answered. I pressed record, made sure everything was working. And he said, listen, man, I got about 30, 40 minutes at the most. I'm not trying to be rude. And I was like, that's all I need, man. That's all I need. 2 hours later, I had to shut him up. I had to tell him, I got to go. And he was just talking. He was just the most accommodating, very kind, like very much like yourself. Like tonight, anybody else would have freaked. Like, I'm in your lobby. What are you doing? This is like very, and it made me feel good. And so yeah, I have a problem with self-esteem. I have a problem with confidence. A lot of times, I have to get out of my own way, but I get told no on a weekly basis, but I don't let it stop me. And the reason I hadn't approached you was because Ralph is a busy man, and I don't want to hinder him with my podcast.
Nah,
but
man.
I'm glad I did, and I'm glad you agreed to do it, man, because this has been one of my most favorite conversations.
Oh, thank you, man. I mean, listen, you're a homie, man. You're my man. So, one of the greatest things that we have on this Duran Duran tour is the camaraderie between all of us.
Yeah,
it's a very beautiful thing to be able to say that there's no animosities or problems or issues between all of us.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing. When I see you guys, it's like everybody, hey man, how you doing? Back and forth. We sit down.
How's your day? Yeah.
And what proves to me how synergistic it all is when you go to catering and everybody's sitting at everybody's tables.
Yeah.
It's like Duran people are sitting with Bastille people, sitting with Nile Rodgers people, and it's not sectioned off like that.
Yeah.
The only time it becomes sectioned is when you get technical people talking technical stuff that
you
musicians...
get the video people over here talking about the audio people over here. Everybody's hating on Backline.
That's when that happens.
Yeah.
But for the most part, people just, hey, how you doing? Sit down and, grab a meal.
That's when you learn.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I can't think of the word right now, is when you put groups of people together that aren't the same and you make them learn about each other. And that's how they make, like you said, synergy.
I honestly wish that this is like a test in human cultural just camaraderie.
Yeah.
All these different cultures together and nobody cares.
No.
Everybody's just vibing off of everybody's vibe and nobody's making jokes about race or, politics or whatever. We're just enjoying the moment. And that's what mostly, as much of a fantasy, it's actually a great reality that we have.
It is, man. Right? When we started this tour, we have new production. New tour manager, new production manager, new all this. And we did the UK run with Jake Shears.
Mm-hmm.
And our production manager called us in a meeting. He goes, listen, when we get to the US, it's going to be 3 headliners on the same stage. And I'm going to do this and we got to do that. And we said, well, don't worry about Nile. Like, we've done this.
Right.
We work well together. It's a brotherhood, to use a cliche term. It's a brotherhood. And then we're going to get Bastille in line with us and we're going to make it all work. Mm-hmm. And he was really worried. And not worried, because Greg doesn't really worry about anything, but he was just like, and then now he sees how it works. Like, we've been doing it a long time.
Right. And it's been cool. I mean, It's a great thing.
Yeah.
We're fortunate. We really are fortunate.
We are, right?
I mean, okay, yeah. Because
I hear horror stories about other tours, and I think about ours, like, the
you just took the words out of my mouth.
Right?
I was going to say I've heard horror stories. I think one of the worst horror stories I've heard of being on the road is when Guy went on the road with New Edition. There was fights, literal fights. They one person died. Yeah. That's how crazy being on the road can be. They sent out thugs to beat up people, and there was guns, and it got bad. Spilled back to the hotel.
Yeah.
We have a very beautiful situation. I'm very fortunate that we're back out on tour with you guys, man, because it's great. It's really great.
Yeah, it is. It's great. We, Nick and Kim both live a few blocks from me in Jersey City.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know you lived in Jersey City.
Yeah.
That's crazy, bro. I thought you lived like...
I used to live in Texas.
Thank you. That's right. I remember.
I've been in Jersey City almost 2 years now.
How you like it?
I love it.
Yeah, it's nice.
I love it.
Right? It's
10 minutes from the city, man.
Jersey City's changed a lot, man.
Yeah, I like it.
So now that I know you're in Jersey City, we got to stay in touch, because I take everyone to this Spanish restaurant in the Bronx. Crazy. I brought a true story. I have a friend who is multi rich billionaire guy. He's a friend.
Yeah.
And he came to New York, brought his yacht over and just chilling. If he was in the room, you would never know that he was so incredibly
wealthy.
Rich. And I said, I'm taking you somewhere in the Bronx I want you to check out. And I took him to the restaurant, and his French accent was he said, "Oh, this is the best food I've ever tasted in my life. Oh my goodness, I love this. We have to come back again." So I got to bring you to this spot, man.
Let's do it. You'll have my number?
Yeah, of course. It's one of my go-to spots, bro.
Let's do it.
It's really good. They have a pollo guisado that will knock your brains out, man. I love this place, man. Yeah.
That's all. I'm always down for that. I'm always down for that.
Yeah, cool.
Maybe we can stop by Soul Snacks too.
Yeah, I'll get you some of those. Yeah. I will definitely get you some.
Well, man, I've taken enough of your time.
I'm fine, bro. We could go on for another hour if you want.
Yeah. Where can people find you online?
A couple of places. If you want cookies, go to eatsoulsnacks.com. Mm-hmm. If you want to find out more about me, just go to ralphrolle.com, RALPHROLLE.com. That will take you to all my social media platforms.
I can link up to all that.
Yeah, I try to tell young drummers, do not sleep on having your own website, because even though social media is what it is, don't be fooled by that from a professional standpoint. There's companies like Wix and Squarespace that you can build your own website, that when people go, it tells more of a personal story than you having to search around your page without any kind of real explanation.
Yeah.
So yeah, man.
And what do you got coming up with Chic?
Well, after we finish the Duran Duran tour, we then, we're doing Australia together?
No, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay. Then we head over to Australia. And after Australia, I'm going to Tokyo for just a quick hit of 3 days straight. And then on the third, I fly from Tokyo to Dubai and then back home. And then I think the next gig is in the Bahamas.
Okay. So nowhere nice.
Nowhere nice. All horrible places.
And if anyone is interested in your masterclass, they can find that on your website.
Yeah, if you go on YouTube, I'm actually working to do something really important for Bernard Purdy. Since I've met him, I fell in love with Bernard and his wife, Celia. So I decided to put together a live podcast video presentation on October 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard, 6 p.m. British Standard Time. And it's just a conversation. We're going to have a host, but then we're going to have special guest host contributors. Some of the people are going to be Dennis Chambers, young lady who's tearing up the world, Nandy Bushell, Buddy Williams. I'm working on getting some others. I tried to get Quest, but he's doing a documentary right now for Sly Stone, so I couldn't get him. But I'm probably going to get Omar Hakim, Charlie Drayton, and Steve Jordan. I'm trying to get, and there's a couple other guys, but they're coming in just to ask one question.
Wow.
You know, to another legend of a person.
Wow.
I really love Bernard, and I've learned a lot about his story. And he's a older man who's still sharp and playing his behind off. But I want to feature him to the world on October 9th. So I'm trying to get as many people as possible. You don't have to be a drummer. Just be a music lover and understand. If you Google Bernard Purdy, you'll see why this man is so important.
Yeah. We'll definitely link it up.
Thank you, man.
And I'll remind myself to push it the week before.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
sure.
It's going to be cool. It's going to be very cool. I'm excited about it.
Before I ask you the next question,
Yes, sir.
It's something that happened the other night when Kirk and Amir were at the show. Kirk had a container of cookies. Did he share those with you?
No,
Captain Kirk from the Roots.
I didn't even see him because
He had these cookies, and they were in the back of the stage right before you guys came on. And I said, "What are you guys doing back here?" And they're like, "Some Englishman yelled at us, so we're gonna stay out of his way." And I said, "Come watch from my world." And he had these cookies, and I went back there to grab a bass. My boss wanted a bass, and I said, "Are you guys all right?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Hey man, have one of these cookies. They're the best chocolate chip cookies you'll ever have." And I go, "They're just cookies, right?" And he goes, No, they're just cookies. And they were delicious.
What were they?
Chocolate chip cookies.
From where?
No, he just had them like in a little Tupperware because he was carrying them everywhere. And then once they were leaving to go talk to you and Jerry, he came up to me. He goes, "I left my cookies in your world. Can you go get them?"
I got to find out what cookies they were.
Isn't that the craziest stuff that everybody thinks there's crazy things happening, but it's Captain Kirk from the Roots carrying around a Tupperware container of cookies.
I got to find out what cookies he was eating. Turn them on to some soul snacks.
Yeah, they were really good, man.
Wow.
Well, the podcast is called "Is Breakfast Included?"
Nice.
Ralph, and if we were having breakfast, what would you have?
Oh man, my favorite breakfast of all time.
Yeah.
So my wife.
Don't think about health reasons. Just,
No. I'm going to give it to you. My favorite breakfast is salmon cakes and grits.
Right on.
And if it's not salmon cake, it could be shrimp and grits or any kind of fish, whiting, catfish, but it's got to have grits. It's got to be my wife's grits. She makes the best. When we had our restaurant, man, people would come so far just to get the grits. She had a creamy grits and she had regular, and they were both always made perfect.
You want to know something?
What's that?
I've never had grits.
Really?
But I'm going to come have your wife's
No,
grits.
no. Here's what you're going to do. I'm going to invite you to my apartment, and we're going to have a breakfast. I'm going to tell her that I did the podcast and we had a great time, and you're going to have some grits for the first time.
Right on, man.
That's the truth. I promise you that. Since
I'm
you're
looking
right
forward
across New
to it.
Jersey, you'll be in my house in less than 45 minutes.
Yeah. Well, Ralph, man, thank you so much for it's been an honor talking. It's been an honor being on the road with you.
Yes, and the same here, man. I'm every time I see you, you have a smile, man. Every time. There's never a day where
it used to be a facade. It's real now.
Good. That's great.
The smile used to be a facade, like you were talking earlier.
Yeah.
It's real now. I figure, just be nice and be happy.
Life is short.
Yeah.
And whatever inner, I don't like to call them demons. I don't like that word. But any inner turmoil that you're dealing with, there's outlets and people that can help you through those things. And that was my problem that I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I thought I was on an island dealing with it by myself.
Yeah. And that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Well, man, it was good talking to you.
You too, man.
Thank you again. Thank you for taking time this late.
Oh, it's all good. What time is it? It's actually 12:30.
12:30.
That's fine.
In
I'm up late anyway.
Minneapolis.
Bro, I'll stay up for another 2 hours.
All right. Thanks, man. Ralph Rolle. I told you were going to like him. You don't like him. You love him, don't you? If you want cookies, visit eatsoulsnacks.com. If you want to find out more about Ralph, ralphrolle.com. That's ROLLE.com. Like I said, go through his credits. You'll be there all day. All day. Remember, on October 9th, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, tribute to Bernard Purdie. We will remind you about that on this podcast. We'll probably post it on our Facebook page. Check that out. It's really important to Ralph. While you're online, you know what I'm going to say. I don't even have to tell you anymore, right? Because you've told everyone you know, like you've annoyed your friends to say. You go up to your friends, you go, hey, make sure you check out isbreakfast.bigcartel.com and buy a shirt. All right, guys, I am done. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you next week.